Welcome to Stars on Sustainability, the podcast where we spotlight change makers shaping a brighter future. I'm your host, Shagun Luthra, and today we're diving into the world of eco-conscious fashion. Joining us is Anita Dongre, a visionary designer who is redefining fashion through sustainability, craftsmanship, and compassion. From empowering rural artisans to championing eco-conscious luxury, Anita is proving that style and responsibility are not just compatible, but inseparable. Let's get started. Thank you so much, Anita, for joining us.
Thank you, Shagun, for having me on this show.
Anita, I'd like to start, at the very beginning, an obvious question, really. Where did your sustainability journey begin? It is something that a lot of people are thinking about, but what was the moment where this became something that motivated you?
I think I've been inherently sustainable in the sense, I don't know, sustainable is such a wide word. We'll discuss it today. But I've always lived very mindfully, I think, pretty much all my life. I've always been aware of the fact that our planet's resources are not infinite and one needs to preserve, conserve. I've always been, in that sense, frugal about consumption. I've always been mindful about waste, but always been conscious of it in my fashion house. And I created the fashion house almost 25 years ago. And there were some firm beliefs I had, which I always, took my personal beliefs into the business to where I don't use leather. We've never used any products that involve any animal cruelty right from the beginning. I think for me, the three pillars of sustainability are people, planet, and animals. And I created Grassroots as a brand about a decade ago when I did Gujarat to visit the women of Seva. They reached out to me because Seva is a very large organization. It has lakhs and lakhs of women under them, and they provide employment opportunities to women in rural India. And the ladies of the Gujarat wing approached me because they had this amazing craft that has been passed down from their mothers and grandmothers to them. But they were looking at how to convert this skill into livelihood for them. And that's when my whole journey into Grassroots started. I traveled into the villages. I saw the kind of workmanship they do. I saw the lives they lead, which are so simple. Sustainable lives are lived in villages. I think when we come into cities, we start over-consuming and there's over-consumption. But I think as material progress is synonymous to overconsumption. But when you live in a village, you live simply, you use less, and you live a sustainable life. I watched, observed how their lives. I worked with their crafts. We created the label Grassroots, where we ensure that every Grassroots garment, at least we try to make sure that the craft comes from rural India. We saw the change in these villages over the years. So I think Grassroots really for me was the start of a socially sustainable brand. And then, of course, there's so much more that's happened in the last few years.
Absolutely right. And actually what you said about, in villages, people have to be more frugal is because you are so much more respectful of the material or the fact that, the resources are limited and there has to be enough to go around. So people are much more respectful of what they're putting on their plate, what they're putting on their clothes, how they're looking at materials. Would that be a fair?
They live with nature. We don't live with nature when we move to cities. When we move to cities, we move away from nature. And when you live in a village, you're actually living one with nature. The minute you live one with nature, you become respectable you start respecting nature. And you consume only what you need. It's when you come into cities, there's so much more that takes over. Everything else takes over there. Your connection with Mother Earth goes.
You said that you saw the changes in villages that you worked with. Can you tell us something about the changes? What kind of changes are you talking about?
So we started about a decade ago, and we've been working with the villages in Gujarat, and we've been working with a couple of villages in Maharashtra also. Women, it's a game changer for women when women start using craft as a means of livelihood. They start earning an income. They get huge respect in society. The panchayat respects them. Their men respect them. It's a complete game changer for women when they're empowered. That we know. Women, whether in cities or villages today, need to be economically empowered. But I think in villages, it becomes a huge game changer. They have the means to educate their children. They know where to spend the money from. They have they have a voice in the house. They basically get a voice, and that's what is so important. and seeing the progress and seeing how these women from shy, simple women, today they've become confident, they know how to manage their money, they are taking decisions in the family. It's for me, it's beautiful to see the changes in their lives.
And I love that you
some of the artisans came with me to New York for my New York store launch. Some of the artisans have walked on my Lakme Fashion Week ramp, and just to see the change, what this can do to them. So, which is why today design, for me, when design empowers women and the makers, that excites me more than anything else. When design impacts lives, that excites me today.
What do you think young designers need to know about either, materials or processes or systems that can actually change the way fashion moves forward now ahead?
I think there are some young designers who, right from the time they're in design school, they're motivated enough to work at the grassroots level, and those are the designers doing incredible work. I think even to use sustainable materials, you need to read a lot, you need to understand, you need to research, you need to work with companies like we do that are producing sustainable materials. So whether it's working with materials that are sustainable or working with craft, which is a socially sustainable angle to your work, it just requires actually that much more work than what you would, it's the tougher road to take, but it's definitely a more gratifying road to take. It's easier to do what everybody else is doing, and it's tougher to do what to follow your beliefs. But I would still say follow your beliefs and take that tougher road.
When you say tougher road, can I ask you for an example? What do you mean by a tougher road?
It's a very lovely question you've asked me, Shagun. That the right road is always the tougher road. Today, if I'm designing a garment, fashion is a crazy business. It moves really fast. There's speed involved. There's agility involved. I can easily create a garment today, let's say, which is embroidered, say, by machine in my office. I can pick a cotton which is not organically sourced because, you have to book organic cotton in advance, or I might take a material that's not, for me, a sustainable material. I might just pick something that's ready. That's the easy way out. Today, when we send craft to the villages of India, it takes months for the craft to reach the village. It's a business of patience. You're transporting a garment to be embroidered. It goes from here to the city. From the city, like Ahmedabad, it goes to a village which is maybe 4 hours away, 300, 400 kilometers in the interiors. It reaches that artisan. It's something that she's doing by hand. She's going to take a month, 15 days, 2 months, depending on how laborious the piece is. It then comes back to you 15 days later. So it's a game of patience. It takes 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months sometimes to get a handmade garment. Whether you're working with a weave, a handloom weave is a slower process than a machine-made weave. But the beauty of that handloom weave, the beauty of that handmade garment is incomparable. But it takes time. Handmade takes time. Craft takes time.
Right. No, that does explain it.
And doing things right takes time. Doing things right costs more. Today, if I'm sourcing, I work with companies like Lensing, and I work with companies, like Lensing, who produce the viscose fiber in a sustainable manner. It does cost more. They ensure that whatever processes they are being followed, that there's no pollution. They ensure that whatever water is used in the process is clean and then put back in the rivers. So when you do things right, it takes time and it costs more. And which is why sometimes sustainable fashion would cost more. And that's, consumers must understand. It's the same for organic food. Organic food today costs more because it's regenerative farming, which is a bit slower. Anything you want done quickly is going to be cheaper. Fast fashion is cheap. Fast food is cheap. Anything done slowly, organically, is going to be slower and going to cost you that much more because somebody's gone through the love of doing it correctly for you.
My question really is that when you say, you talk about it with so much passion, it's so lovely to see. Do you think there are consumers that are aware of the amount of work that goes into some of, these processes or these garments? And do you think there's an appreciation and, an awareness with the consumer that, yes, this is something that has taken a lot of effort. This is something that is respecting the environment. This is something that's a better choice?
Shagun, I would say the consumer should start owning this today. If the consumer does not buy you, who are you making it for? So I think the power lies in his hands. Because the consumer is buying, there are companies making. The consumer says, no, I'm not going to buy this. I'm going to choose better. The companies will stop making it, which is why I always say the power is in your hands. Make it happen.
But that's where awareness comes in, right? I mean, people
Yes.
need to be aware, because otherwise you're not going to know. We're not thinking, everybody is not consuming mindfully.
Yeah, it's better to buy less, and it's better to buy quality, and it's better to reuse, rewear, thrift, do whatever it takes. But just become mindful of every time you buy a garment, it's used the earth's resources, which are not like I keep saying, they're finite resources.
Finite.
So be mindful. Think, how much. Try to wear your clothes as much as you can. Literally wear them till they fall apart.
So in India, especially, special occasions often come with splurging, and that is the culture, right? So how can sustainable fashion offer glamorous and responsible alternatives at the same time? And at this point, I'm specifically talking about the entire Indian wedding industry and bridal trousseaus, for example. That is something where a lot of resources are spent, and the culture is of overindulgence.
It's a great time to, in fact, to be sustainable. I think you can choose wedding clothes very, very intelligently. You can, first of all, if you're socially sustainably minded, you can make sure there's craft in the clothes. For example, we do a wedding collection, which is a Pichwai collection, which is hand painted by artisans in Rajasthan. We do a collection which is hand embroidered in Gujarat. So you can choose to do your bit by supporting an artisan, by buying something that's hand done. You can choose styles that are classics. We are very fortunate in India. The sari is our national garment, and for weddings and occasions, it's such a beautiful, beautiful garment to wear. A sari is, for me, truly sustainable because you can wear it, you can pass it down to your daughter. Again, like I would say, choose clothes that are great quality, clothes that you can keep re-wearing, restyling. If you're making your trousseau, make sure you're buying clothes that are just not for that particular wedding occasion. Keep thinking of how am I going to repeat this again and again and again. And the more you repeat your outfits, the more sustainable you are. Share your clothes with sisters, mom. I'm all for sharing. It's great to be sharing your saris with the other women in the family. Share your jewelry. Learn to share and care.
And swap. I love swapping
You
clothes
can
with.
swap with friends. Take care of your clothing. An occasion wear garment which is done, let's say in silk or a silk sari, it lasts you for years and years and years. And even when that sari gets old and gets torn, you can always fashion it into cushions. You can make curtains out of it. You can make so many things. You can recycle even your old saris. So if you're mindfully minded, you would know what to do with and decrease your wastage in your occasion wear clothes.
What does conscious fashion look like for daily wear?
You can definitely be eco-fashion in your everyday wear. For example, in Grassroot, we do a collection with hemp. Hemp is one of your most eco-friendly materials. There's nothing
Right.
eco-friendly than hemp. It's better than cotton, better than linen, better than any other fiber. It's a great fabric to wear in our Indian summers all through the day. You can wear khadi. You can choose a lot of materials that are eco-friendly, but you can still look extremely smart, stylish. There's a lot available in India today that's sustainable.
Anita, I was also reading about, some of the processes that you and your brand are following. So you're harnessing solar energy, you're ensuring you compost, and, you have a segregation of dry and wet waste. And also, I think you're repurposing the water that is used to make sure that, that is used responsibility and not just wasted. So, I mean, at the back end also, you have a very strong system going.
It's the least we can do, Shagun. Small things make a difference for us. Textile waste is, in any fashion company, textile waste is your largest waste actually. So me being the creative head of the company, I ensure that no design is created that has too much wastage when you're cutting the pattern. So when you lay the fabric and you create a design, some patterns use up very little of the fabric, and most of it goes in wastage. We try and go back on the drawing board. The entire design team is instructed to go back to the drawing board to kind of redesign that garment to make sure that we get another garment out of the wastage, or we redesign the garment in such a way to reduce the wastage. All our small wastage, which something you can't avoid, which are your what you call chindis that are left over. We give them to NGOs who repurpose it for scrunchies. They repurpose it for quills. So we try to ensure that even that wastage is again utilized. I think composting is something everybody on this planet should do. I mean, that's the least you can do is compost your food waste in your own home, because it really doesn't take much at all. It just takes one small composting bin, one small, literally a 4 square feet area and a balcony is enough for composting. So composting is something I believe very, very strongly in, that every individual must practice. Even if you're in a tiny apartment in Bandra, you can practice composting in Bombay.
Anita, I want to ask you, you talked about materials. In fact, you've incorporated innovative materials like Tencel. What changes when you work with these materials and innovations?
Shagun, I spoke about this earlier. We work with a company called Lensing. We use viscose, which is made from wood pulp, but we just ensure that our viscose is sourced from Lensing, because they are a company that produces the viscose pulp and the viscose fiber to make the fabric in a sustainable manner. It's as simple as that. So for us to support companies that are making their materials in an environmental friendly manner is most important. So for example, I didn't have a line of bags because I don't choose leather, but we launched our first line of bags a couple of years ago where we used a material called Miriam, which is produced in the USA, which is a biodegradable leather and which is made sustainably. Today, we are working with a lot of manufacturers in India. There are a lot of young, amazing entrepreneurs who are working on leather alternatives in India. Currently we've sampled with a couple of them, and those products are already in the stores. So material innovation is a very, very important part in fashion, and keeping a watch on entrepreneurs who are creating materials in a better manner is something I get very excited to work with such young entrepreneurs.
So we've done this a lot, Anita. We've spoken to a lot of people on this podcast. And I must say that the one thing that really runs common, and you're saying it as well, is that the first thing that people can do is just start consuming less. You need to just consume less. And that's the first step, because a lot of people don't know where to start taking the steps towards sustainability until they have, actionable points that they can, work on. But the first thing is be more mindful about what you're consuming.
Be mindful of what you're consuming. Study the brand you're buying from, whatever it is you're buying, whether it's your cosmetics, whether it's your fashion, whether it's shoes. Take that little time. Slow down.
And now that information is there, so a lot of brands
Yes.
are making sure, especially if it is a sustainable brand, they do know. Like I'm looking at clothes and it says made from upcycled bamboo or something, and there is a lot of awareness that is being created. I think people just need to take the time.
Yeah, but there's a lot of greenwashing also happening, so we need to be careful.
So I wanted to ask you about that. So, I mean, as far as greenwashing is concerned, does it sometimes also bother you that people are not, thinking this through, and greenwashing has become that's become the buzzword now?
I think there are a lot of brands who sometimes just write that this is sustainable. They will not explain how and why. And somebody will just read it and say, oh my God, this is sustainable, I'm buying it. So you need to question, you need to ask, you need to be careful.
I have a small set of like quick questions for you. Basically, they're yay or nay, and it's more for to understand what are the options available. So I'll just throw something out there, and you tell me yay or nay, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so yay or nay? These are the questions. Clothes made from recycled polyester, yay or nay?
This is a tough one. I would say yay, because it's okay to use recycled polyester. But then again, I would say that I would use recycled polyester only for clothing that absolutely needs to have polyester in it. So maybe for outerwear, I would try to avoid using polyester for anything that touches your skin, because I don't think it's very skin friendly.
Okay, that's
That
fair.
I say from a very health viewpoint, being a woman.
And it's all important, right? All of it has
Yeah.
to be taken into account. Paying a premium for sustainable fashion, yay or nay?
Yes. Yes.
That was a resounding one. You didn't have to hesitate on that one. Big brands promoting conscious collections.
It's a good trend, yes.
Completely avoiding fast fashion brands.
Yes.
Switching to new sustainable materials over traditional ones.
Yes. Both is important.
Yes, no, I knew you would say that. Anita, we asked this question to everybody on the podcast. If you could change one thing about the way we live today to ensure a better planet tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh, I would definitely want it to be a meat-free planet. I think the amount of resources that meat takes is can be used for so much better. I think that one thing. If everyone just became meat free, it would be definitely a green planet. I think I want to share some data with you.
Of course.
I mean, this is the latest study that shows that a meat-free diet has 75% less climate heating emissions, water pollution, land use. Vegan diets also cut the destruction of wildlife by, I think, about 66% and water use by 54%. And meat and dairy just provide about 18% of the calories and 37% of protein. We all think that we need meat for protein. And I know a lot of people are going to, I know there's this big argument about meat eaters and non-meat eaters, and the meat eaters will always say that we need meat for protein, but it's not true. You can get your protein requirements from plant food too.
Anita, I want to ask you something. If you could redesign the fashion industry for the future, what would it look like? What needs to change? What should stay the same?
Should I go completely utopian?
Why not?
Beautiful vegetable dyed clothes, beautiful organic clothes, no polyester. Yeah, that's what I'd like the fashion industry to be.
Well, here's hoping that you get exactly what you want, and it's good for all of us as well.
Yeah, support craft. Yeah, just support craft, support sustainability, and everyone consumes less but wears great quality.
But do you feel fashion inherently is something that has to work harder at being circular and sustainable, just as a function of the industry itself?
Yes, definitely the industry has to work harder. But again, I say the power is in the consumer's hands. The consumer changes, the industry changes.
And do you think the conversations have changed for you in the last, let's say, what have been the differences? Because you said that you have always lived very frugally. So you were obviously thinking about this much before it became fashionable, if I may use the pun.
I know, sometimes I look at myself and see myself as this person. And sometimes I even wonder, what am I doing in the fashion industry? But I love the creativity involved. I mean, I absolutely love my work. And for me today, my purpose is for me, it is empowering the maker and empowering the wearer. Fashion is a great, great tool to empower women too. For me, I know that it's an emotion when somebody wears a garment that's well designed, well cut, well made. They just feel great. They can, you can face a day so confidently with the right clothes that you wear. So fashion has a huge role to play in that sense. And I think that's the meaning I look for in my work, that it benefits the maker, it benefits the wearer, and that's the joy I get out of it.
Anita, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation, and I'm so glad we could talk about some of the things that are top of people's minds. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shagun, for having me on the show.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Stars on Sustainability. A big thank you to Anita for sharing her inspiring journey and invaluable insights into the world of eco-conscious fashion. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. You can find more stories like this on Earth Inherited. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and remember, green is the new cool. Thank you for tuning in.